Okay, let's get started. Welcome to the Provo City Planning Commission public hearing. It's May 24th, 2017. We will begin our meeting tonight with a prayer from Maria Winden. Following the prayer, Deborah Jensen will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Our dear Father in heaven, we are so very grateful to Thee for this day that Thou hast given us, and we're grateful to be here tonight for this Planning Commission meeting. We ask that Thou will bless us to be able to discuss the item before us in a calm and civilized way. We pray that Thou will bless us with Thy Spirit and help us to make a good and righteous decision. We ask Thee to please bless our first responders here in the city with health and protection, as well as those who lead our government. We are grateful for all that we've been blessed with, and we say these things in the name of Thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Just have one item on tonight's agenda, and we will be forwarding a recommendation to the Municipal Council. So tonight's decision is not the final decision, but again, just forwarding a recommendation. Before we move on to that item, I'll take roll. Starting on my left, state your name and state if you have a conflict of interest with this particular item.
Maria Winden, no conflict.
Jamin Rowan, no conflict.
Deborah Jensen, no conflict.
Dave Anderson, no conflict.
Okay. Item number 1, Edward Hopkins requests a zone change from R17 to R17A to allow for accessory apartments for homes located along 690 South and 770 South, east of 1100 West in the Sunset neighborhood. And this item will be presented to us tonight by Robert Mills.
Thank you. So yes, this is an application that we received from Mr. Hopkins seeking to amend the zoning just to allow accessory apartments, which I just want to say, first of all, must be owner occupied in order to have one in your home. I don't have a clicker tonight, so I have one of these, but I don't have the thing that advances the slides. We're technology challenged tonight. So the request would actually apply to 33 existing lots. Again, any future accessory apartment will be subject to the provisions of Chapter 1446 of our code, which details the development standards for an accessory apartment. And each property with an accessory apartment must provide a minimum of 4 off-street parking stalls. That's the next one. So this is kind of like a general map of where we are. This is 600 South. This is 1100 West, 1600 South. This project is actually specifically stated to the R1.7 zone, which this is the only R1.7 zone we have in our city. So that just means the lots in this area are a minimum of 7,000 square feet. Can you go to the next one? This is just another close-up of the actual project site. And you can see that most of this area is already developed with existing single-family homes. There are a few legally non-conforming duplexes along 770 South, but the majority of homes in this area are single-family. This is the current zoning map. You can see that it's currently zoned R1.7. And then if you can just advance, this is the only thing that we're doing is just adding an A to the zone. So there's no change in the residential nature of the zone or anything like that. Go one more. I did this just to kind of demonstrate where existing zones in the city of Provo have overlay zones. And so everything outlined in the pink demonstrates where accessory apartments are currently permitted through zoning. Accessory apartments are permitted in other zones, but these ones are specifically for the overlay. So with the addition of this one, it would actually provide one more spot. Thank you. These are just some examples of homes currently in our community that have accessory apartments. Some of the provisions of having an accessory apartment in your home, you can't change the residential nature of the home. You can't make it appear as if there are two dwellings in any way. And so these are some good examples that I found that do that. They look like this one actually has an accessory apartment in the basement. This one does not, but just to show that they're just normal single-family homes. Okay. These are some homes that are actually in the neighborhood, and I brought these up just to say similar features and in how there's an existing dwelling here that could possibly have an accessory apartment in the basement or something like that. This is one of the existing non-conforming duplexes in the neighborhood. That's all the slides I have. After staff reviewed this application and compared it to the general plan policies and also how it's consistent with the zoning, staff felt that it would work well to grant this type of request to allow accessory apartments in this area, specifically because it helps to fulfill the general plan's goal of making sure that owner-occupied neighborhoods continue, and this is a way to continue that indefinitely. I mean, people can sell it, but the next occupant would need to be owner-occupied if they wish to rent out the apartment. For those reasons, we felt that this would be a good thing, and we're recommending that Planning Commission forward a positive recommendation. I did want to just point out quickly, or early on in the process, the neighborhood chair and I talked. At that point, didn't seem to be any concerns. Seemed to be a pretty okay thing, and so we collectively decided that the neighborhood chair elected not to have a neighborhood meeting. I believe that has changed. Mr. Taylor is here tonight, and I'm sure we'll speak to that. But I think he has some concerns to express. I wanted to note that throughout the process of going through the staff report and everything like that, staff didn't receive any negative comments from the neighborhood or surrounding neighbors. To the contrary, someone wrote and supported this. I provided that testimony to you, but I'm available for any questions if you have any.
Great, thanks, Mr. Mills. Any questions for staff at this point? Okay, we'll invite Edward Hopkins to come forward, the applicant, and add anything that he feels is worth adding. It should be from.
The recording does need it, though. So if you press that button, is there a green light?
It's on from my end.
There we go. Whoa. Whoa.
Okay.
Well, first off, that was an excellent presentation. Thank you, Robert. It's like he was batting in my corner. I really don't have anything to add other than I have went and talked to I like to say every, I've probably missed 2 or 3 homeowners that this will affect their pieces of property, and no one has been against it. And there's been a lot of this stuff going on down in there for years, so nothing's really going to change. All it'll do is help you guys know who's doing it legally and who else has multiple families in their house. I really don't have anything to add. That was an excellent presentation, and thank you.
Okay, and any questions for Mr. Hopkins at this point? Okay, thanks.
You want this left on?
Yeah, just leave it on.
All right.
Thanks. Okay, we now open this to public comment. We'll start with the Sunset Neighborhood Chair. He's here. He's welcome to come forward.
Hi, my name is Brian Taylor. I'm the Sunset Neighborhood Chair. And in my conversations with Ed and the correspondence with Robert Mills, it was very clear to me that in my conversations with Ed, he had requested a variance, and I was like, okay, this is not a big deal. He shared with me the fact that he had contacted several of his neighbors, and in our conversation, I was very supportive in something that's been with his family for so many years in this area, and he's had such a positive record of demonstrating proper use of an accessory apartment. I was under the impression, and please, I lead with my mistakes, I read it as a variance, not an overlay modification to the zoning. And so I'll take full responsibility for not understanding that, the magnitude of this. In so doing, in correspondence with our area rep, it was made clear that as soon as this particular zone is rezoned as an accessory apartment, there is no quote-unquote going back. You can't take it back. You can't deny other people. This will just, and has a potential of snowballing throughout the entire area. That might be a concern with the neighborhood. I, again, do not oppose Ed's variance to continue his well-established and the good job he's done as a renter to these apartments. I'm in full support of his desires to make it legal that he's renting within his home. The concern I have is we have one of 2 directions to go. Either I have a full neighborhood chair meeting, and we meet with all of our neighbors and said, sorry guys, this is what's happening and this is what's coming. There's nothing that I'm going to do about it because I'm in full support of what Ed is attempting to do. Or I request a variance and say, guys, this is what's coming. How supportive are you of that? Because once does that make sense? I'm hoping I'm making myself clear there, that as soon as this one plat is changed to an R1A or R7A, there will be other neighborhoods and other areas within Sunset neighborhood that will request the same overlay and will increase the number of potential renters living within a single family environment. With our history of the boulders just over the freeway, many of our neighbors are very hesitant of a transient, transient nature of renters, and would be very hesitant on approving something of this nature. On the other hand, we may have a full support of all of these neighborhoods having the same overlay modification. Again, I don't have the full feedback. As I said, my mistake in understanding it was a variance, not a full overlay modification. And so I would request a continuance on this particular matter so that the neighborhood can understand the full implications of this modification. And that's all I would request. I, again, am in full support of Ed's proposal I would just like the opportunity to make sure that those within the Sunset neighborhood have the opportunity to speak to the magnitude of this modification. Okay, thank you.
Thank Oh,
I
there's
have
a question
I
for
have
you,
a question.
Mr.
When
Mr.
do
Taylor.
you hold your neighborhood meetings?
As quickly as I can. This is, we don't have a regular, we have it about once every 3 months. Once every 6 months is what we started with, and there's been several things that come up. The latest development by Ellen Prince, the new development that's going down towards the Beltway. We've been having quite a few modifications take place in Sunset. This has actually been a very busy year. There hasn't been a lot of zone changes, zone modifications, or requests for improvements in the area for, I've been neighborhood chair for 15 years, so this has been very busy.
And how do you notify your neighborhood when there's a meeting?
We have for something of this magnitude, I would have to do a door-to-door flyer release on this, and have to make sure that everybody has the opportunity to attend.
Okay, thank you.
You bet. Any other questions? Okay.
No, thank you, Mr. Taylor. Okay, we'd like to open it up to any other neighborhood chairs from other neighborhoods that are here. Okay, open up to the general public. If anyone wishes to come forward and address this item, this proposal, please do so.
I have a question. Can you show me the overlay that we're talking about?
The next one back. So this one actually shows it
Okay, so
essentially all in this area.
yeah, just that little bit right there. And this one over on this side has not been changed yet. Is this the first change that we're trying to do on the west side?
This is the first application for accessory overlay
On the west side.
on the west side.
Okay.
That I know of. I don't know if it's been done in the past.
Does anybody know if we have any others on the west side?
That other slide didn't show.
Didn't it?
There are no other A overlays on the west side, and I don't know of any applications in the last 15 years that have been made for an A overlay on the west side.
Okay. So I'm just curious to see, if you were to bring up Sunset neighborhood, it's a big area. We're talking about this little area. So I kind of think we should consider it's just this little area and not Sunset neighborhood.
That's what the proposal is for, yes.
Or not the whole Sunset neighborhood, just this little
Right,
area.
yeah, that's what the proposal currently is for. So there's no discussion about the entire Sunset, or no proposal about the entire Sunset neighborhood right now.
Right, and I'm bringing it up. We need to consider that it's this little area and not the whole neighborhood. So I'm telling you people to think about that. We're talking about these, how many homes? 20?
I think we get that, right? I mean,
20 homes?
30, I think is what.
And it's not concerning of all these people. So I would just like you guys to consider that. Thank
Okay, thanks. Any other comments from the public? If not, we'll return the conversation to the Planning Commission. Okay, close the public hearing at this point and return the conversation about this item to Planning Commission. At the end of our conversation, if there is one, I'll look for a proposal.
I have a question for Robert.
I'll try to answer.
So you did mention already the 4 off-street parking spaces. And on one of the pictures, an example, there were exterior stairs, but an accessory apartment, there's supposed to be interior stairs, correct?
There has to be an
Connecting.
interior connection.
Okay. So would an applicant be required to make modifications to create an interior connection? If they're trying to...
So if one doesn't exist already, then Yeah, that's a requirement of Chapter 1446, that there has to be an interior connection to the apartment. So they can still have outside stairs, they can still have an exterior access, but there has to be some sort of interior connectivity, whether that's sectioned off with a door or something like that.
Okay, and they make application to the city to create the accessory apartment, correct?
Correct.
And they're subject to the city's rental licensing program, so there's an inspection that happens and that sort of a thing. Is that right?
Yeah,
So they'd have to get a license for the
correct.
accessory dwelling unit and,
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
so there'd be some amount of oversight then
So
that the
yeah,
city would be.
and they're also required to register another address of the property, and that way we can just quickly see where they are and who has one and who doesn't.
And just to reiterate, an accessory apartment would only apply to an owner-occupied home. So if someone had an investment property, they were renting the house, they couldn't then have another accessory apartment in that rental.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, anybody can go out and rent their single-family home, but if you're going to have an accessory apartment in it, yeah, it has to be owner-occupied. And that's what that means is specifically detailed in the code.
Is there a limit on how many people they can rent to? If it's not a family, how many?
2.
2? Thank you.
I'll just say that I live in a neighborhood with an A overlay, and I see absolutely no problems with that. I think it has worked out great. I've never heard of a problem with the A overlay anywhere. As we were talking during our pre-meeting, it certainly allows people to actually stay in their homes longer. We have several older individuals who rent to young, in our case, since we're right next to BYU, rent to young couples who take care of those people, allow them to stay in their home longer. I think it just allows for a lot more flexibility and actually, contrary to the fear of transiency, in my experience, it's allowed for a lot more stability. I understand Mr. Taylor's desires to have a neighborhood meeting to present this. We would just be passing on a recommendation anywhere. There could be time to still have a neighborhood meeting prior to the municipal council hearing of this item. I'd be inclined to move in that direction rather than continue the item, to just allow the neighborhood meeting to take place. If there are problems, they can still show up. The municipal council makes the final decision. But again, if there were any concern in my mind about the disadvantages of an A overlay, I might be a little bit more sympathetic to wanting to have a neighborhood meeting, but I just can't come up with a negative consequence or implication for an A overlay. I only see positive. It meets so many of the city's objectives that I'd prefer to just forward a positive recommendation, allow the neighborhood to hear about this. I don't have the same concerns about kind of the snowballing into a whole west side A overlay zone. Even if it did snowball to some extent, they would have to go through the process of coming forward. And if there were compelling arguments against an A overlay, we could hear them at this time. But I don't see kind of that kind of vague fear as something to hold this project or hold this item up at this point in the process.
And if I can just add, accessory apartments, I think, happen in every neighborhood and every community in one form or another. And I'd agree with the chairman. I haven't seen any adverse impacts on neighborhoods from accessory apartments where they're used according to the way they're defined and intended to be operated. And I think there's great benefit in having those be able to happen in the light of day instead of in a clandestine way where they get inspected. their records kept and that sort of a thing. So in that respect, I think a change like this definitely can be beneficial for a neighborhood.
And I would just add that this is one way that we can accommodate moderate income housing, which is in fairly short supply in Provo, without getting into large building types like apartment houses or townhome complexes. These small accessory units blend very well into existing neighborhoods, and you oftentimes don't even realize that anyone is renting out an accessory apartment. It's pretty opaque in that regard.
I would just add that I also live in a neighborhood with an A overlay, and we have kind of the other age spectrum with a lot of starting families who this has allowed them to purchase their first home because they're able to have the income from the accessory apartment, and actually has decreased some of the transiency that we would experience in our neighborhood because it's allowed them to become a homeowner and they stay longer, sometimes much longer than they first anticipated staying when they first moved into the neighborhood. So we haven't seen in our neighborhood a detriment. Once in a while, someone will try to move away and rent it as a duplex, but the neighbors are very quick to point out the error of their ways, and it's quickly taken care of. But other than that, it's been very beneficial in retaining homeowners and letting them add to their income.
Okay, I'm looking for a motion at this point, I think. Don't be shy.
I would move that we forward with a positive recommendation to the City Council. Item number 1, Edward Hopkins requests a zone change from R1.7 to R1.7A to allow for accessory apartments for homes located along 690 South and 770 South, east of 1100 West in the Sunset neighborhood, and include staff recommendation and this letter from Bill Colorado that was submitted to Robert Mills.
Great. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. Chance at the second. Okay. All those in favor of the motion, please indicate. Aye. Okay. It's unanimous that we forward a positive recommendation to the Municipal Council. That's our only item. Do you have a motion to be adjourned? Okay. Is there a second to that motion?
Second that motion.
Okay. All in favor of being adjourned? Aye.
Aye.
Okay.